Jason Smith, Missouri Congressman, southeast part of the state, is here. He's also the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, which plays a huge role in taxes and spending policy in Washington, D.C. Of course, the House GOP passing its budget a couple of nights ago. Perfect segue from what Bill O'Reilly was just talking about here with his morning update. Good morning, Congressman. You've done interviews. I've seen them. You've been asked about the sky is falling, cutting Medicaid, we're all going to die mentality that's come out of this budget. What do you say to people who are pushing that?
It's most of the time when my colleagues, my Democrat colleagues in Washington are moving their lips, it's typically not true. They're trying to say that the sky is falling, that we're cutting Medicaid. The budget resolution that we passed out of the House this week never even mentioned the word Medicaid one time. Medicaid was never even in the word. What we said is we're going to cut spending in energy and commerce. We're going to cut spending in judiciary. And we went through all the different committees, 11 different committees of how we're going to try to cut spending. But they think anytime you say you're going to cut spending, that means taking benefits from people who have worked their entire life and they're on Social Security or Medicare. It is absolutely false. What we are doing is streamlining the government, weeding out waste, fraud, and abuse. DOGE has showed the American people what we knew up here is the extreme amount of waste that's going on within the bureaucracy.
So they jump on the Medicaid thing, but it's really, and you can explain this, I think you just touched on it, but whatever the umbrella that Medicaid is under, you've said that agency has to cut X amount of percent. And some are insinuating that must be a Medicaid cut. But you're not even saying, even though I'm sure that Medicaid, can be looked at for waste, fraud, and abuse, you're not saying those cuts have to come from Medicaid. It's like looking at your household budget and saying cut $1,000 a month. You don't have to cut food. You don't have to cut energy. You just got to cut, some of the frivolous spending that is out there. Is that a fair comparison to what you guys are trying to do?
That is exactly correct. What the budget resolution said is that the Energy and Commerce Committee will have to cut at least $800 billion. Well, the Energy and Commerce Committee has numerous items within their jurisdiction, including one, which is Medicaid. But they have trillions of dollars that are in the jurisdiction of the Energy and Commerce Committee. This gives that committee flexibility to cut the right programs. And President Trump has been crystal clear. He will not support cutting benefits for people on Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. It's not going to happen. Congress will not ever be able to overcome President Trump. He had 77 million people send him into Washington. His priorities are the priorities that we're going to govern and pass.
Okay, so then what do you do? I heard Speaker Mike Johnson say last night on CNN that, listen, we don't want to cut Medicaid for the single mom, 2 kids, working 2 jobs and just trying to make ends meet. But for the single male who doesn't have any children and is sitting on the couch, we've got to get able-bodied men back into the workforce in this country. How do you go about actually accomplishing that?
Able-bodied, healthy adults should have to have a work requirement. If you receive federal benefits of any kind, and if you're an able-bodied, healthy adult, male or female, you better be working. And so that's something that we can require. That's not taking benefits away. That's saying get off the couch, go to work, and be a productive citizen. That we can do, and that will save billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. But that's not cutting Medicaid. That is putting a requirement on it and telling people, get off the couch, go to work.
Now, do you need the Senate to get to 60 votes on that to have a work requirement, or do you think does that not need to happen? Can you just get a simple majority in the House, a simple majority in the Senate, and President Trump can sign that work requirement?
That's getting into the weeds, but that is in fact what we are working on right now.
Okay.
That's why we're passing this budget resolution, and it's going to be one big, beautiful bill. When we pass this budget resolution, that allows the Senate to be able to pass the underlining bill with just 51 votes in the United States Senate. That's why the president wants one big, beautiful bill, so it can have all of his border policies, all of his energy policies. It can have the spending cuts, and it can have his economic policies, his tax policies, all in one bill so it can pass the Senate with just 51 votes.
Okay, got it. Now, last thing on this front, when you look at getting this deficit down, we're running a $2 trillion annual deficit. If you guys get this big, beautiful bill, as it's been described, passed, what will the deficit ultimately end up coming down to in the short term if you guys can get this all done?
Well, everything has to work hand in glove. The resolution that we passed out of the House on Tuesday would cut $2 trillion worth of spending, the most that Congress has ever passed in the history of this country. It's $400 billion. Passing $2 trillion will be absolutely amazing, but working hand in glove with the administration. Ever since President Donald Trump took office, he's worked around the clock to cut wasteful spending and right-size the federal government. One of the most important tools he has in the fight is DOGE. Mm-hmm. DOGE has been able to save more than $50 billion just in his first 5 weeks. The president believes over the next couple years we can get to a balanced budget within the federal government. That has not been the case since the 1990s. Yeah. The president knows that we don't have a revenue problem in this country. Revenue has consistently stayed at 17% on average of GDP for the last 50 years. What we do have is a spending problem. Mm-hmm. The percent of spending of GDP over the last 5 years has averaged 26%. That is unacceptable. It has to get brought down. And President Trump's the leader to make sure it happens.
But just to be clear, I got like 30 seconds. That's $2 trillion over 10 years, right?
It is.
Okay.
And that's the amazing. The most that has ever been cut is $400 billion over 10 years.
Gotcha.
So this is a big step. I would love to cut a whole lot more, but this is the beginning step. Of course, we have the smallest majority in the House of Representatives in the history of this country, and we have a diverse group of Republicans. And so we have to thread the needle with the ones on the right and the left, and we're going to do it. We're going to deliver for the American people. We're going to deliver the priorities that President Trump campaigned on.
Jason Smith, Southeast Missouri Congressman, Chair of the House Ways and Means Committee. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Take care.
All right.